We'll get started while we have the rest of the community join in. Thank you for joining this all important webinar. Um, Happy International Men's Day, by the way, to everyone, to all the men on the call and all the men in our lives. And today we're just going to be dissecting the topic of balancing mental health, work life, and parenting because quite a lot is changing in the modern day world with work, with parenting, and really responsibilities between both males and females consistently changing. So what we have today is a space for men to share viewpoints, personal experiences on mental health, unique challenges faced by men as parents. And we'll really be dissecting the conflicts of perceived masculinity and mental health, challenges faced by men as parents and as caregivers, and then core strategies for coping with stress and anxiety and depression, specifically for the men. So today we've got distinguished panelists that will be walking us through or guiding this conversation with us, and we'll get to know them a bit more over the next 1 hour. We have Dr. Ocho Okorocha from Stripes Health Services. We've got John Itzwili from ExxonMobil, and then we've also got David Obiga from Shell, Nigeria. But before we get into the topic of the day and really discussing mental health and work life and parenting, we'll just kick off with a quick opening remark from the section chair, SP section 61. That's the Lagos SPE section. We've got him, Dibo Ashafa, on the call. So he's going to quickly just walk us through an opening remark to set the scene. Over to you, Dibo. Yep.
Hi, thanks, Kosi. Confirm you can hear me.
Yes, we hear you and we see you.
Fantastic. So, first of all, thanks everyone for joining. This is lunchtime on a Tuesday, so it's uh it's a tall ask, but the day is the day. Happy International Men's Day. We wanted to mark this day with this event as part of our membership outreach. We're doing all types of inclusive events, so leaving the usual suspects, but also trying to gather and speak to different groups. And this day presents an opportunity for this discussion. Um, uh, I assume most of you know about the SPE, but if you do not, this is the Society of Petroleum Engineers, a global outfit. We are the Lagos chapter. We are one of 5 chapters in Nigeria. We have around 3,000 professional and student members. So we do a lot of things from our primary mission is to promote technical excellence and the sharing and dissemination of technical knowledge. We have 10 university chapters in the southwest region of Nigeria that we look after. And maybe at the end of this event, we'll share all the things that are coming up next. But when Cozy and team told me about this topic, I was like, I'm married, I have kids, I have a very demanding job. I'm trying to stay fit and healthy and trying to maximize on my earning potential. All of that creates multiple dilemmas in any given day. Do I stay at the office after 6, or do I come home to play with my kids? Do I sleep on Saturday, or do I do this? So it's not a topic that a lot of people are comfortable speaking about. So I'm hoping that in the next hour or so we can delve into different aspects and share and learn. With that, Kosi, back to you, and I wish everybody a happy, safe space for discussion.
Super. Thank you so much, Dibo. So I believe we have an idea where we're headed with this conversation. Um, I'm going to go into talking about our panelists and what we'll be discussing. So thank you again for joining in, all these amazing guests that we have online, all the advocates, and very importantly, our distinguished panelists. It's indeed a privilege for me to be driving this conversation along with my colleague Choco, just to commemorate this International Men's Day 2024. Um, this significant event serves as a platform for candid conversation, just straight up fostering a safe space for men where we can openly share viewpoints and personal experiences and challenges. So we're going to shed light on very crucial aspects that is often overlooked, which is men's health and well-being. We recognize the traditional expectations and societal norms that have long silenced men's struggles, and it's really time for us to break free from some of these constraints because a lot of them are man-made. Um, so as we navigate some of these complexities of this modern day fast-paced world, men continue to face unique challenges as parents, as partners, as individuals. As Dikbo already highlighted, there's always a dilemma, on how to manage your time or what to use your energy for, what to channel your resources to, for the men folk and for all folk, but our focus today is really on the men. For the men, there's the pressure to provide, there's the pressure to protect, the pressure to perform at work, and that can all be very overwhelming. So we aim to create an environment where men feel empowered to express their emotions, free from judgments. So our objective for this conversation today is really twofold. The first is to provide a supportive forum for men to share their stories, fostering connection and understanding, and then to promote awareness and action, particularly addressing stigma surrounding men's mental health. So throughout this webinar, we will explore the intersection of masculinity and mental health, challenges faced by men as parents, as caregivers, as their role evolves in the modern day world, strategies for coping with stress, and how to build resilience and support network. So our esteemed panelists or speakers will share some insightful perspective. We're going to be drawing from their personal and professional experiences. So what I'll say to you for our male attendees, your voice matters, your stories deserve to be heard, and your well-being is paramount. To our female attendees, thank you for joining in as well, and we say your support and allyship are invaluable. So together, let's have this conversation so we can dismantle barriers and encourage vulnerability and just promote a culture of empathy. So let's get right into it. I'm going to start off with Dr. Uche, and just to get to know him a little bit. Dr. Uche is a health management expert with over 20 years experience in managing health and well-being of a very diverse workforce of multinationals across the sub-Saharan Africa. He's a global leader in health planning and management. And he's also been a speaker at several international conferences, including SPE. He's a very vibrant member of the SPE community, and he's been very vital to a lot of programs that we've had. Dr. Uche holds professional certificates from Nigeria, from Australia, as well as the United Kingdom. He maintains extensive global allyship and affiliations. He served 2 terms as global co-chair for the Health Committee of SPE Technical Directorate. During COVID-19 pandemic, he actively advised several multinationals operating in the region and also helped to galvanize private sector support for local response efforts. He's a health management consultant for Stripe Health Services. So thank you, Dr. Uche, for joining in. And we would kick off the first question with you.
Thank you, Kosi.
So if you
Pleasure
could
to be
share,
here.
awesome. Thank you for accepting to be on this panel. So Dr. Uche, what does being a man mean to you? And really, how has society influenced perception in general of what a man should be?
Right. So this is to me, it's a tough question, but I'll start by saying Happy International Men's Day to all the men who are here right now and those who will be listening to this webinar later on, because I believe it's going to be shared for people to access. And to the women, too, Happy International Men's Day to the men in your lives. So what does it mean to me to be a man, and how has society influenced this perception? Being a doctor, being male, as far as I know it, is determined by chromosomes, a particular combination of chromosomes, right? The XY combination, and being female is the XX combination. So I was born with the XY combination of chromosomes. So this, I saw myself as male, and then the rest of it is, so what does that mean? Did my parents, I happen to have had two sisters growing up. So did my parents treat us boys, six of us, differently from the girls growing up? Were we treated differently at school? We noticed that we dressed differently. Okay, and then we were assigned different kinds of tasks at home. And then gradually we realized that the expectations for the male child and later for the man are profoundly different. Okay, so apart from the biological and physiological differences, which are just what they are, society actually does most of the shaping, the mindset, because of the expectations, because of the challenges, because of the roles that you believe are yours, either traditionally or along the way, because of the society where we find ourselves in. So I would say that society is changing, and I'm going to speak to this at some point later. Society has evolved a whole lot over time. There was a time that the man was supposed to be the provider, because the man was, males are physically stronger. That's the way they are built, they are made. And so at that time, subsistence involved using your strength to go farm, to go hunt. And so that means that they dominated the sphere of provision, like you said, dominated the sphere of protection, when protection had to do with physical protection. So all of that is changing as society is evolving, and all of us who are, I guess, in the transition phase are beginning to, and it's good for us to allow our mindsets to be adjusted to the realities of our time. I think I'll just take a pause at this point.
Thank you so much, Dr. Uche. I like the medical perspective that you brought to it, the biological perspective. That was really good. So I'm going to go straight to the next panelists. John Itsweli, thank you for joining us. It would be great if we're able to get a video, just so the rest of the guys on the call could have a sense. So John Itsweli is a transformational leader, and I have to say that the profile of our panelists is really elaborate. So what you would hear me read out is an abridged version of really who they are and what they represent. So I'll do my best to cover what it is that they stand for, but where I miss out additional important information, please feel free to add that into your introduction. So John is a transformational leader with over 2 decades of experience driving growth, innovation, and operational excellence in the oil and gas industry. He has a proven track record of achieving superior results through strategic planning, team leadership, and entrepreneurial mindsets. He's currently the General Manager, Operations Technical for ExxonMobil Nigeria, having held positions of increasing leadership across projects, subsurface, strategic planning, facilities, and operations. He holds a first degree in mechanical engineering graduating at the top of his class with a first class, and he also has a global executive MBA from the IE Business School, Spain, graduating on the Dean's List. He's an alumnus of the Enterprise Development Center, EDC, of the Pan Atlantic University and several ExxonMobil leadership programs. He is also the chairman of the board of Hepzibah Eye Care, a chain of 17 eye clinics and hospitals, which he co-founded with his wife. He was also the chairman, board of trustees of Pegasus School, ExxonMobil sponsored schools from 2020 to 2022. He has a strong passion for coaching, mentoring young professionals within and outside the oil and gas industry, helping people find their purpose and reaching their potential. He loves working with children, listening to music, politics, history, and sports. He's married to his lovely wife, Ubemi, and they have 4 wonderful kids together. So thank you, Mr. Eswili, for joining the panelists for this conversation today. So I'm going to pose the same question to you. If you could share with us what being a man means to you and how society has influenced that perception.
Okay, thanks for having me. I think before I go on, I would like to wish everyone a happy International Men's Day. I think the question really, when we talk about who is a man, I really like the way the good doctor came at it. But I'm going to be, I grew up in the Niger Delta, so I would probably bring a little bit of flavor to who the definition of who a man is. So I think in the traditional sense, when people talk about a man, so you think about, in local parlance, when they say this na man, in pidgin English, when they said here's the man. I think the sense really is, a protector, a provider, a solution provider, or a solution or problem solver, a leader, a nurturer, a pillar in that sense. And I think as we reflect on societal expectations from men, you take a look at the profiles that we just read, and it gives you a sense for what people look out for, right? When they think about men, a sense of accomplishment, bucket loads of achievements and all. But if you think about my profile, which is on the page, this is only half the story, right? It doesn't really talk about my struggles along the way. And boy, there's been many of those. And so generally, men are expected to be strong, to not show vulnerability, to not show fear, to be pillars at all time, to be the fixer, to be the problem solver. And my sense really, and my reflection is, that impacts men in 2 ways, right? So one is the willingness to share, the willingness to be vulnerable, to seek help. Thinking about that around, the fear of being judged, being seen as weak, the loss of control, in local terms, being seen as a sissy, or like we would say, woman rapper, in that sense. The other way I see that play out also is in terms of the way and shape in which men can seek help. And my sense really is that, if you think about all of the things we've just talked about, there's a clear sense that men lack the emotional vocabulary to talk about how they're feeling. So on one hand is the willingness to share, but I think there's also another level of even when men really want to share, the ability to share. And so we know that men are more silent. It's a lot more difficult to talk about how they are feeling and to express their emotions. We know that with women, it comes a lot more naturally. And over the years, they are groomed and, it's encouraged and all. And I think, on those 2 levels are things that we must address. One is, the willingness, address the roadblocks that prevent men from sharing, and then the how as to how we share really, which is, how helping folks or helping men get more in touch with their feelings and be vulnerable to the place where they can seek help.
That was so excellently put. Thank you so much, John. I think you touched on some really key points there around vulnerability and men's ability to express and just encouraging that. And that's really what this conversation is about. Thank you for touching on that. So we'll just go to the third panelist, and really this has not been in any particular order. Mr. Obiga. Mr. Obiga is a seasoned engineer. He's a foundation chair and a Paul Harris Fellow of the Rotary Club of Nigeria. Author of the book 7 Nights of Despair. If you haven't heard of this book, it's definitely one you want to read. He's an oil and gas professional. He's a life coach. He's a businessman and a foundation director. With over 2 decades in the oil and gas industry, Obiga has significantly contributed to his field and community. He holds a BSc in mechanical engineering, seeing a trend here, an MBA and a postgraduate degree in oil and gas engineering from Robert Gordon University. Starting from St. Michael's Primary School, Obiga has excelled academically, earning the nickname Isaac Newton during his high school years at Enitonian High School for his exceptional physics skills. He later founded the Obiga Tutorial, providing guidance to fellow engineering students and actively participated in student politics. Professionally, Obiga has held various key positions, including drilling supervisor, drilling engineer, and he's currently the head of well engineering capability development at Shell Nigeria. His expertise in high pressure and high temperature operations is globally recognized and evidenced by award-winning publications in both SPE and NAPE. Obiga has been honored with SPE Ambassador Lecturer Award and the University of Benin's Center of Excellence recognition. He established the Obiga Mathematics Foundation using his passion for youth development and mathematics to drive social change. Paul Harris Fellow of the Rotary Club, Obiga also directs Jopal Farms and enjoys playing chess. He is married to an engineer as well, Mrs. Ndidi Obiga, and they have 4 children. So thank you, Mr. Obiga, for joining us. And we will take your introduction along with the same question that we asked, which is your definition of being a man and how society has really framed that.
Yeah, thanks, Kosi. Please confirm you can hear me.
Yes, we hear you loud and clear.
And again, let me just wish everyone Happy International Men's Day. And maybe just before I respond, I also saw that John has 4 children. I'd like to ask John to be a man and go for a 5th one.
The question, sorry, I missed the question you were asking.
No, so I saw that you also have 4 children like me. So I was going to ask that you should be a man and go for a 5th one.
Yeah, we wish.
All right, thanks. Thanks, Kosi. So indeed, John and Dr. Uche responded quite aptly in terms of giving us what a man really is. And I think John came from Niger Delta space. So I wouldn't say so much about, but I just wanted to add that in the rhetoric, it appears that somehow a man is expected to be like a beast of burden. I see that John said that he's expected to be a pillar. So that's part of the expectation from our society. And I think somehow we have sort of fallen into that kind of trap. And we begin to think that that is actually supposed to be our reality. But then, as we move away from that space, like Doc said, where strength was really what was required to provide, today we're in a space where the skill sets are different. So I think it's becoming important for us to unlearn what we learned and begin to relearn. And one of the things that I think as men we need to begin to learn is to learn from the women how that they have been able to get to this space where they can be vulnerable without judgment. Also, in your opening statement, you say that how can men be vulnerable, and be free of judgments? What I want to tell men today is that regardless of judgment, please be vulnerable. Because the space in which we live, for you to actually survive and fulfill your potential as a man, first understand that you are human. And because you are human, vulnerability is key for you to actually survive in the environment that we find ourselves. That thing that we expect men to be courageous. And a wise person once said that there is no courage without vulnerability. So for us to really be the man that will excel today, you must be in a space where you are given to vulnerability. And John was just speaking here that behind some of these things that you see, behind these achievements, you hardly see the toil. You hardly see the sinusoidal waves that you have to go through to get to the point where then we always show the high point. But behind these high points are low points. So when you are at the point where you are low, it is important as a man that you adopt vulnerability. So one of the things that I would like to add that men need to do today is this. We have a lot of pressure from society, and they say, be a man. But one of the things that we must learn to do is to pick all of that pressure and situate it within the boundaries of your own reality, so you are able to manage it in a manner that you stay on the line. And maybe as we go forward, we can then begin to discuss what are those things that we'll need to do to ensure that we're able to put all of those pressures within the boundary of our reality. I'd like to leave it here. Thank you.
Kosi, we can't hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Thank you so much, Mr. Biga. We're going to jump straight into the conversation of men's mental health, because that is definitely something that has resonated through the introductory comments, and as we're walking into the topic, really, because it's become a very serious concern worldwide. Societal expectations, cultural norms, and traditional masculinity, they've created more of a barrier than a connection for humanity, really, especially for seeking help. And that has left a lot of men struggling in silence. And the statistics are alarming. Up to 40% of men's mental health issues go untreated. Men are 3 times more likely to die by suicide versus women. And 1 in 5 men experience mental health issues every year. And who knows, the statistics might even be worse than that. But today we will just talk a bit more about it. And Dr. Uche, you have a lot of experience working with and counseling folks around issues that are related to mental health. So I'll pose the first question to you, which is, what are some of the common mental health challenges that you've seen that are faced by men, and how can we address them?
Yeah, thank you, Kosi, and to my fellow panelists. This is interesting. I'm enjoying this. I'm learning a lot already. So much shared. So I would like to say thank you to you both. So to address the concern around health challenges that men have commonly, I would say you already mentioned some of them. You already mentioned depression. It could be anything. It could be anxiety. It could be depression, which eventually leads to suicidal tendencies and suicide. And then it could actually be substance abuse related, okay? Because men, in the process of not wanting to, not feeling it's okay to not be okay, sometimes resort to the abuse of substances, alcoholism, the use of controlled drugs, etc., etc. And that eventually compounds the problem. So it could be depression, anxiety, substance abuse, suicide, whatever. But I would say beyond the conditions themselves, maybe there are risk factors that are sort of unique to the men that predispose them a little bit more to these conditions, to developing these conditions and allowing them to deteriorate. And a lot of them stem from expectations of society, expectations of self and family, and then what we'll perhaps just call gender norms. Okay, so men, because of who they are, because of the expectation, tend to suppress their emotions. Yeah, you did mention that I do a lot of counseling. I do, but when you have to counsel married persons, more than 80% of the time, when the person you're going to counsel is the man, it starts with the wife or a female relative or somebody coming to you and then complaining about the person eventually, and then you find a way to get the person's attention and encourage the person to come and have a conversation. So men don't want to talk. They want to bottle things up. Sometimes they live in denial. They refuse to acknowledge that there's something going on. Okay, so it's a big problem. It's a big risk factor. It's a sign of weakness to open up, and that's the perception, but actually it's not. I think it's a sign of strength to overcome your hang-ups. You need strength to be able to overcome those hang-ups. So as far as I'm concerned, it's quite the opposite. And then, of course, John and David talked about the pressure to provide, the pressure to protect, the pressure to lead, both at the home front and at the workplace or wherever we find ourselves. And these pressures are big on the male, but we don't know if they necessarily have to be on the male to that extent today. And it's a conversation I like to have, the evolving society, how it affects the expectations for the male. Then also there's the fear of stigma, of course. With societal expectations, there's the fear of stigma. Sometimes the person on his own wants to come out, wants to talk, but he's afraid that he's going to be perceived wrongly. And so because of the fear of stigma, then they are afraid, of course, that they might be devalidated. And so they shut in once again, and then it gets compounded. So it's more for me about the risk factors that predispose them. The conditions can range from anything to anything, really. Yeah, thank you, Coach.
Thank you, Dr. Uche. I think what I picked out of that really is it's okay to not be okay. And this goes across board. So I'm going to just move very quickly to you, Mr. Esweli. And your question will be how do societal expectations around masculinity really impact men's willingness to seek help? The good doctor, as we're now calling him, has talked a lot about some of the constraints around men and seeking help. But really, how do you think the society has impacted this?
Yeah, I think the definition or the traditional definition we just unpacked, and I think of course in different way, shape, or form. I've talked about that. Continues to put pressure on men, and I talked about in my opening around how that impacts men on two levels. One, the willingness to come forward, and then how to actually ask for help. I tell you what, I give you an example of an incident where we had a number of leaders. I was in the room and we're talking to maybe a younger colleague, and one of us was providing feedback to that individual on something that he hadn't done right. And in the middle of that, you had this individual who would consider a man's man, break down. And, it was a bit of it was a surprise to folks sitting around the table. And I think the reflection, because we took him aside, spent some time and all, but the reflection really was that you had a situation where, as a man or a man's man, you are expected to, always have it together at all times, to have, and this is kind of how, if you think about traditionally and in our society, how men have been groomed. You're groomed to, put up that front, always man up, take charge and all of that. And there isn't a whole lot of thought put towards, a man who's being expressive, who is being emotional and all of that. And I think that's maybe the areas that, the way society is evolved is becoming front and center. Because I think part of the conversations we've been having is the case for vulnerability. And I dare say that the only way to create connections is through vulnerability. Because folks, when we talked about our profiles and it's all great and dandy, but until folks see the journey that took you there, there's really no roadmap as to how they can go through the troughs and the low points that ultimately takes them to those heights. So there's a whole lot really to unpack, even in kind of how those conversations, how men, and again, I would say that also goes through with women, how women can help as well in help, essentially helping men articulate how they feel. Personally, one of the I would say my key resource person in helping me is my wife. She can tell very quickly when things are maybe not working, when I'm becoming silent and things like that. She's able to kind of ask the question around, what's going on and things like that. And that's really where, how women can help in this journey as well.
Awesome. Of course, I'm going to take the female credit there. So hold on to the women in your lives as allies, but also this vulnerability thing, it goes way across board. So vulnerability keeps ringing on this call, and it's definitely something we all need to hold on to. So Mr. Obiga, it's over to you now. What role would you say that emotional expression and vulnerability play in men's mental well-being?
So the thing is that when we're growing up in lots of our families, once your dad comes back from work, it's almost as if the learn has arrived. And your dad was that man that was even though he was not a military officer, but he was like, so that's the mindset. But again, I think that's a narrative that we need to begin to change. So let me give an example. So some years ago, we planned a family trip. And as the time was drawing near, I discovered that my calculations were not adding up. But I couldn't express. All of the emotions was bottled within me, and as the time grew near, the pressure was increasing. So eventually, and just like John mentioned, my wife noticed that I was going to be silent, always calculating. So she was like, what's up? I told her, no, it's a work thing, so nothing. But eventually she saw that I wasn't going away, and then she asked, and I said, hey, CEO, this trip that we will plan for, like say things never know. And she said, so why did I not just say it? So sometimes when people talk about societal pressures, it's not necessarily that it's your village people that are putting the pressure. It could be yourself or just something from within your immediate family. And that is why I said as a man, you must develop the ability to situate those pressures within your boundaries. And when when I opened up and then we had that conversation, we had the engagement, and we did, the trip eventually happened, but we just went to the Le Méridien Hotel in New York with the family, and we had a nice time. Everybody was happy. So that is why it's important that we have the conversation. So How can we make these things be? One, going forward, what I then learned to do was we then began to set family goals at the beginning. But these kinds of things help reduce the pressure, eventually then impacts you negatively. Now, the other thing to understand is that as a man, family, work, and all of that, it is becoming increasingly important that we do not leave the role of connecting with the children to our wives, our spouses alone. Because if you disconnect from them now, you will not be able to connect to them later. And so either you are depressed due to work overload now, or you are depressed due to loneliness in your later life. So to ensure that as long as you live, you have a connect of family, because they are a great resource, whether in terms of adversity or in terms of joy. So it is important that you set those clear family goals as part of, when you're thinking of, I want to become a billionaire, I want to do this, I want to get this. Please do also set goals that reflect how do I want to connect with my family. For instance, one of the things we do is every month I go out with my wife, and every quarter we go out as a family. And you don't necessarily need to go out expensive places. In fact, one of the quarters we actually went out inside our house. So those are things, practices that can actually help us, stay on top of the game as we contend with the issues of life.
Yeah, that was amazing, Mr. Bigger, because I think something that you've really brought out is it doesn't have to be expensive. You could do it right with the resources that you have. And honestly, you really touched on the next question I was gonna ask you around balancing work and family responsibilities without really sacrificing mental health. Is there anything you'd like to add just a bit more on that?
So again, just to mention, like I said, pressures from work are enormous. The pressures family are enormous. So one of the things that would also help, in my earlier years, I used to find it difficult to delegate. But somehow I just had this erroneous impression that perhaps if I delegated too much, my colleagues or my subordinates wouldn't do this work as well as I would do it. But distinguished ladies and gentlemen, I can confess today that some of them do it better than I would have done it. So please, let's not, I like the song from Timaya, this life, I cannot kill myself. Do not kill yourself. And the other thing you should do, please learn to proactively escalate. Don't keep work in your hands until temperature is at 95 degrees. When you can't hold it anymore, then you need to run around. It's not a sign of weakness. Perhaps it is, for me, a sign of strength. And even if somebody sees it as a sign of weakness, as far as it keeps you strong and you can come to work the next day, you can always do it better another time. So those are the things I would like to add: proactive escalation and prudent delegation. You cannot do it all.
Fantastic. Thank you, Mr. Bigger. So, Mr. Swilly, I'm going to pose this one to you. As role models, or positive influences that you've had from the role models and positive influences you've had in your life, how have they really helped to shape your parenting style? Because I've heard quite a bit about it, so please do share with us.
Yeah, and thanks to Mr. Bigger. I think he's, some of the things he's touched on are really great, if you will, for parenting. I think for me though,
Hello,
it's really hello.
The last talk left.
Yeah, okay.
Okay. So I was going to say that, it's not so much of one particular person, but a variety, what I've seen a number of people do and I've seen work. It's kind of interesting, but the one thing we say is, be deliberate. Make out time. Now you would imagine that when it comes to work, we are very deliberate. We're setting time, we're scheduling things, and we're very disciplined, in putting things together. That same level of discipline is required in parenting, really. I think some of the pitfalls, and talked about that as well, is where you allow the time with your children to become the squeeze. You say you have all of this work, and you want to get work done, and eventually you go home to spend time with the kids. But ultimately, I think if you're not deliberate, what tends to happen is that all of that time is lost. And so you want to schedule the time you spend. And some of the other myth is, when I've done all of the work, I would have some more time to spend with family or with the kids. The reality is that the 24 hours is never really enough, right? So you've got to be, extremely deliberate in how you do that. And what I've seen work really is to do that, put that on calendar. I think one of the most challenging roles I've had was as operations manager, in the field. And it was kind of interesting because between my wife and I, we created a routine that allowed me to actually spend time with the kids and with the family. We actually blocked out certain time in the day where I was with family, and it had to be an emergency, to break out of that. The other thing I've seen that's really important is know your children, right? All children are not created equal. You have children with different idiosyncrasies, different ways of expression, and the likes. My first daughter is very expressive, for instance. She's kind of the life of the party and all. My younger daughter is a bit more reserved, even though she's kind of the one in charge. So you've got to understand how things work, and you've got to understand your kids and have, essentially a game plan on how you manage those. But if you think about that, that's exactly how we manage work as well, right? If you think about the people in our team, part of the things we do is understand their strengths and their weaknesses and how we manage them and how we ensure that they can reach their full potential. The last point I would also talk about is know yourself. Because again, this is really how you interact with your kids, how you interact, within your family unit. You need to know when to ask for help. I like what Mr. Obiga was talking about in terms of delegation and all. For me, for instance, I know I had to come to an understanding about my relationship with my daughters, because I realized a couple of years ago that they had me wrapped around their little fingers, right? So, and one of the key and very important moments was my elder daughter telling me, starting a statement and trying to ask me for something, and saying, Dad, as the yes parent, I want to do X, Y, Z. And I said, oh, hang on a minute, this is really bad. so I think my wife really has helped provide a little bit of balance, and also it's a development for me, knowing when to say no, knowing when to to allow things go. So I think that knowing yourself, knowing your kids, your strengths, their idiosyncrasy, knowing yourself, and also being very deliberate and making out time is really important.
Thank you so much, John. That was very interesting, both hilarious and interesting. So we've touched on really asking for help, and help can come in a variety of ways. It's a long range of means and ways that we can seek help. Choco, like I mentioned at the beginning, will be joining us to just wrap up this session. So I'm going to just let him introduce himself by talking through, how seeking help or support and using the resources around you can really impact your life, as we share some more personal stories and experiences. Choco, are you able to unmute to just talk us through that?
Kosi, sorry, did you call me?
No, Choco.
Okay, I'm able to unmute now.
Okay, super.
All right, great. So thanks, Kosi, and many thanks to our panelists. It's been an interesting session. I've been taking notes, and I will definitely carry these things with me as I go. And just like someone rightly pointed out, we have a sizable number of women in our lives here on the call. So I want to say thank you to every single woman who is here to celebrate us today. So happy International Men's Day. To the question of seeking help and support and how it's impacted my life. So first, just like we know, someone once told me growing up that I do not have all the time in the world to learn everything there is to learn. Right? I cannot, that even at age 90, I wouldn't have learned all there is to learn. So that I need to look, learn, and also learn from other people. And having put that out there, the Holy Scripture says something. It says, the labor of the foolish will rear them, for they know not the way to the city. So be it in our professional lives, be it in our homes, as parents, there is a city, right? Whatever that city means to you. And there are people who live there currently, as it were. So people who've excelled in that area and are experiencing that kind of bliss that you and I look for. So for me, one thing that I learned quite early was actually how to be vulnerable, right? Mr. John has dwelt on that topic very well. And I learned that from the women in my life at the time, right? Yes, when growing up, they say when you cry, people ask you, are you a woman? But I was given a safe space to actually be vulnerable and seek for help quite early. So that helped. Now, in seeking for help, we need to also be careful who we seek help from, because it's not everybody, right? Some people you go seeking for help and your news becomes what will be trending everywhere. So we also need to be careful. So it's something that we need to do, seek for help. And how has that helped me? One is that it removes having to relearn, right? It removes that having to make the same mistakes other people have made. There's a reason why people have gone ahead of us. There's a reason why some people are older than we are. There's a reason why some people are more experienced, is because they have something that we can always learn from and not have to make the same mistakes. Secondly, it's also brought efficiency in problem solving, right? I don't have to spend 5 years trying out different things. If someone and a few people have tried it, yes, we wouldn't take everything that we are told hook, line, and sinker, because at the end of the day, you still have to adapt it to your own unique situation. So, in summary, it has actually brought efficiency in the way I live and in the way I make decisions. Okay, so moving on, we'll be looking at a few personal stories and experiences, and the good doctor, I'll be coming to you. And the question will be, what personal experiences have shaped your understanding of men's mental health?
Okay, thank you. It's been exciting, and maybe I start to talk about this from the point of view of parenting, just like my colleagues, John and David did. There's this story I want to share. I used to, in the past, that has been curtailed significantly, I'm happy to say. I used to travel a lot, a whole lot. Okay, just jumping from one country to another, from one flight to another. My wife works fully. I mean, she still works. She goes to work. She's busy at work. And so somehow I thought it was okay as long as she's home and I'm traveling. One morning, it was public holiday. I was in town. I went to my daughter's room. I have a boy and 2 girls. So I went to just play with her. When I got into the room, she turned and saw me and she said, "Bye, Papa," because she assumed I came to tell her, "Sorry, I have to travel." So that broke me. Okay. And then at that point, I made a decision that every public holiday, every visiting day, every midterm break, and while they're on vacation, I will be with them. And so when I believe it's John that talked about intentionality. So as a parent, that was good for me. Now I learned something again, that when you intentionally humanize yourself to the people around you, to your spouse, to your children, to even your subordinates at work, when you humanize yourself, you let them know that you're human too, just like them. That way they can connect to you easily. There's this story about Nelson Mandela, and big image, right? And a reporter once said, that Nelson Mandela was about to interview him, so she was already quite awed. And there was this thing about Mandela that if he was about to walk into your room, into your office, you would know. You would know that he's just about to walk in. So she sensed that he was about to walk in, and truly he walked in. And the first thing he asked her was, "Do you have a toilet here? I'm pressed. I need to use the toilet." So she believes he intentionally did that to humanize himself. And then after that, she became relaxed. So let's help ourselves by humanizing ourselves before whoever we connect with. That way, their expectations of us are properly calibrated. And then, so this is part of what I do for myself. And then my wife also, we need to strike the balance, right? Those roles that we assumed in the past were for the female is because society was what it was at the time. Now things are shifting from brawn towards brain more. So, and then, so some of those roles have to be adjusted. I don't know if you have noticed it, and this is very important, that the young males are struggling. I think a lot of them are confused. I think they're confused because there are expectations that they don't understand why those expectations should be there, because things have changed a whole lot. And so you get to the school and look at the prize giving day of my children's school. I was privileged to be the chairperson to hand over the prizes. Every single award went to a girl, except one, best behaved student male. So that had to go to the boy, but that was the only one. So I think we need to start, as well as parents, to focus on the male child to calibrate those perceptions. Maybe we can help them going forward into the future as well. So thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Uche. So to Mr. Obiga, if you don't mind sharing your own personal story and experiences also, how have you overcome mental health challenges and what strategies worked for you?
Thank you very much. And I'll share something. So before I start that, I just want to share that there's this book I used to like many years ago. It was Long a Letter by Miriam Makar. And in the opening chapter, she said, "Dear Aisha, to receive your letter. By way of reply, I'm beginning this diary." And she made a profound statement that our long association has taught me hiding in others at least pain. And I hold on to that statement dearly. The other thing I'd like to say is that, please, let's have one person you can open up to in life. And then also have one person that can hear you when you're not speaking. It is very important. Now, to my story. So in 2021, I was kidnapped in Port Harcourt. And before that incident, I am a Port Harcourt boy by better inclination. So I feel a sense of invincibility when I'm in Port Harcourt. In Port Harcourt, I feel like I am, I'm not in the house. So when I was taken, I was confused, like, what is going on here? How is it possible that a Port Harcourt rock, who would they be? Now, when they took me into the forest and I sat down somewhere beside what I thought was a well, at that point, one of the thoughts that came to my mind was suicide, because I couldn't understand how the invincible Obiga will be kidnapped. But while that thought was going through my mind, I had to then link up to my humanity to first understand that I am really just a human. I am not as special as I think I am. The vicissitudes of life happen to both the good and the bad. The fact that something happens to you is not because of what your great-grandfather, probably not because of what your great-grandfather did or did not do. So when I began to think along those lines, I tapped onto my humanity and I allowed my vulnerability to change. And then I saw that it wasn't really a big deal anyway. But I needed to concentrate on to see how I can stay alive in the den of the past and come back home to meet my family was expecting me. And of course, I understood that they were also very worried and probably doing all the best to ensure that I come out. So I wasn't going to jeopardize that by wallowing in self-pity and thinking that I am too high to be kidnapped and then kill myself by myself. So that is one of the things. So I tell people, let us just come down from our high horses and let's be human. The other thing that helped me while I was there, in the midst of the captivity, there's this thing I call the concept of substitution. So when they take me to a place, what I tried to do was I think of a place that was close to where I was taken to that gave me joy. And so I moved my mind. So instead of being completely depressed and in despair, that ability to substitute where I was with an environment that gave me joy in the previous time was able to provide a bit of a balancing force that kept me afloat all of the 70 days I spent with them until I joined my family back happily. And of course, the other thing I like to say is around the network. There was a solid network, family, my wife, us, and my kids, and the entire family, and my colleagues in the office that helped me get back on my feet after I'd come out of that experience. Please be healthy, connect, be vulnerable, and just know that we are basically, and thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Bigger. Truly insightful points you've raised there. And as we begin to round up, I would go over to Mr. Swaley, and you would take this last one again on personal stories. I know you shared one earlier, but this will be in the area of advice. What advice would you give to your younger self regarding mental health?
Yeah, I think we we touched on a good number of those. I'll tell myself to relax, or like we say now, chillax, right? I think interestingly, I'm kind of the way I had to take some time profiling myself, and you could say maybe more of a bit of a type A and a perfectionist. I think what we need to do as men is to forgive ourselves more and to keep moving forward. When I think back to when I joined the company, when I joined the company, I thought I was going to leave within the first 2 or 3 years because I had a manager who it felt like it was really, really hard and difficult, and it would be snapping at my heels and all and things like that. But I look back now, it didn't take me maybe a number of years, and in reflection, to realize that he was maybe one of the best formative persons to happen to me in my professional career. And so in the spur of the moment, it feels like, this is overwhelming and, really can't get past this. But what I've seen over and over again in cycles is that, I like what David was saying, that if you could project to a place where, things are good and everything is okay, it allows you, it builds hope, it builds capacity for the experience or the not so great experience that you're going through. And those cycles come, and and I think our capacity to power through those cycles, are what we need or what prepares us for the next phase. So for me, I think, going through those cycles and number one, forgiving myself, because that's also a big deal. We just talked about how men internalize things, being able to let go and to say, yeah, I might not be doing as great today, but I'm going to focus on how I can move forward, how I can get past the challenges I have today to the point where I can start performing at the levels I really want to perform. And that just requires us, forgiving ourselves, embracing the journey, embracing the challenges, and enjoying the journey. So focus on the journey, not just the destination as well. I think those are pointers and things that I would say for my younger self.
Thank you, Mr. Swaley. Really great points. So I'll just, because of our time, it's been very great conversations we've had so far. Many thanks to our panelists and thanks to everyone who has attended. Before I hand over to Ju, I'll just do a quick recap on a few things I noted down. I know you did also note things down. Be vulnerable, be willing to share, learn the how. Men we're not very expressive. So learn the how, especially from the women in our lives, okay? There's a need to learn, unlearn, and relearn as we keep making progress. Proactively escalate and delegate for better work-life balance. We know if you do them all right, like we say, have an inclusive and sincere conversation with the people in your life, your spouse, your children. Set realistic goals and budgets. Be direct and disciplined, right? When it comes to your children, and humanize ourselves, forgive ourselves even more. And lastly, embrace and enjoy the journey, not just being focused on the destination. So thank you once again to every single person. And Uju, over to you, please.
Thank you. Thanks, Chinonyerim. Thank you so much, everyone, for such a great and inspiring session. First of all, let me say good afternoon, and it's really my pleasure to deliver this vote of thanks for today's webinar. I believe everyone can hear me. Just to check. Yes?
Yes, we can hear you, Uju.
Okay, thank you. Okay, and again, let me say Happy International Men's Day to all the men that joined us today. We've had such engaging and powerful conversation on the topic, balancing mental health, work life, and parenting. Today, we came together to recognize and celebrate and reflect on the invaluable contributions, resilience, and positive impact of men in our lives and the society in general, as well as to empower our men to explore and express their emotions. So men, please feel free to cry. That's what I got today. So first of all, let me say thank you to our wonderful speakers, Dr. Uche Okorocha, Mr. John, and Mr. David. Thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedule to join us and share insights, and as well as your personal experiences, being fathers, being men, being colleagues, and all whatnot. We really, really appreciate the time you spent with us. So thank you so much. I would also like to recognize the presence of one of the past council chairman for SPE Nigeria Council, Mr. George Kalu. Thank you so much, sir. I don't know if you're still on the call, but thank you so much for joining us today. And to our organizers for today's event, Kosi and her team. Kosi is the Diversity and Inclusion Chair for SPE Lagos section. I don't know if she mentioned it, but I guess she did. But anyway, thank you so much, Kosi, for putting this session together. From the coordination to selecting the speakers to putting together deep questions that helped us all stay glued to our devices. You have really demonstrated incredible dedication to the board. So thank you so much for this. And lastly, special thanks to everyone on the call. You took all your time, to join us today. Your presence, you stayed to the very end. I think we still have almost everyone still glued and still, waiting to hear more. So thank you everyone for joining us. And just to say to all the men in our lives, our fathers, our brothers, sons, friends, and colleagues, we celebrate you all today and always. And thank you for the love, the strength, and the courage. And let's use today to continue the conversation that men should feel free to cry. I'm sorry, but I have to keep saying that. Oh, men, please feel free to cry. Be human. Thank you. Thanks, everyone. Now, just to highlight some of our upcoming events in the remainder of this month, we've had a monthly technical meeting, and we've had a session with Leading with Influence, and today we've done our International Men's Day webinar. So for the remainder of November, we have 2 events still left. We have the YP monthly technical meeting, which is taking place tomorrow. So please, YPs and any other person interested, please join us tomorrow for this session. And we also have one more, which will be happening on the 22nd. And it's Beyond Recognitions by our own, dear own Ugochi Onyuke. Again, please join us as we try to, unpack and give you and create events that, truly touch the very importance or essence of us being a board. So thanks everyone for joining us. We really appreciate the time you spent today. Thank you, thank you, thank you so much. And at the bottom of that page, you can see our social media handles. please feel free to reach out to the section. Perhaps you have any question or especially on membership or volunteering or being a part of the board. Please join us if you are interested. So thanks everyone for joining us today, and do enjoy the rest of your day. Take care, everyone. Ojon, do we take pictures?
That's correct. We'll take pictures. Everyone kindly turn on your videos. You've been enabled to turn on your videos, please. Let's take a group picture before we leave. Just to add thank you to everyone, resource persons and all that's made this day. Thank everyone for celebrating us as men. God bless you. Okay.
I need to stop sharing so the picture shows up.
Yes, Kosi, can you stop sharing? Yep. Okay.
Oh.
All right, good. While you share your videos, try to add the smile to your voice, sorry, to your face. Thank you. Coming up. Okay, all right, we're good to go. And I will be taking through several slides. So I will take this slide is already full. I will take this. Just smile. Thank you. Happy International Men's Day. We're doing well. Thank you. Okay, now second slide. Thank you. Clicking and clicking. I'll go to the third slide. And I'll click. Thank you, everyone. Lots of females on the call. Thank you for celebrating us. Yeah. Yes.
Thanks, everyone.
Oh, thanks.
Bye, everyone.
Thanks, yes.
Bye. Thank you.